Welcome to our weekly Parsha with a focus on leadership ideas. This week is Parshas Chayei Sarah, and we're going to look at that proverbial question of what is the purpose of life. This week's Parsha begins very interestingly. It's called the Parshas Chayei Sarah, but last week's Parsha ended with the passing of Sarah. So you have to ask the question is how is this week focused on the life of Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah, when we already talked about her passing? So when you look at this week's Parsha, what's covered in this week's Parsha? Finding a burial plot for Sarah and her burial. Then it's Avram coming to a realization that when Sarah's passed away, it should be thinking about the future and getting a spouse for Yitzchak. So he goes to search for a spouse for Yitzchak, finds the appropriate spouse, and they get married. And then we finish up with the Parsha with Avram himself getting remarried, and he is the father then of six new nations, and then the passing of Avraham and the story of the passing of Ishmael. And so the sages ask a very interesting question here. Avraham, when he was commanded by God to bring Yitzchak up as a sacrifice, he saddled his donkey early in the morning and ran off to do the mitzvah. He was given a command by God. This is God's will, and he wants to run to do this. So this is a mitzvah, and he's excited about doing it. And that's his focus. His focus is on doing the mitzvah. Sarah, on the other hand, we find out that when she finds out about Yitzchak being brought up as a sacrifice, it kills her. So why? Obviously, a mother losing a child, that would be devastating. We get that. But on the other hand, Avram also was losing. So they're both prophets. They're both dedicated to serving God in the world. And yet Avram is running to do this joyously. And for Sarah, it's too much. So where's the distinction? So we have to look at the two personalities and, in fact, the goals of each one of them. Avram is father of the nations. He is not only the father of the Jewish people, but he has a father of Ishmael, which becomes many of the Arabic nations. And then later in life, he remarries Hagar, who's now called Keturah, and fathers six more nations. And his idea of chesed, of kindness, is to anybody and everybody, indiscriminately opening the channels for everybody to learn about God. And his acts of goodness and kindness attract the crowds, and then they turn around and they learn about God, and he spreads this concept of one God throughout the world. And as we see today, from the Jewish religion, Lahavdil, the Muslim religion, the Christian world, they all focus back to Avraham and his teachings. So in that sense, Avraham has been the most influential person in world history. So when he has a command from God, he's excited to go do the service of God. And he's content with a spiritual existence. And so if that's what God wants, that's what we do. Sarah, on the other hand, is a very different personality. She's all in the game with Avram. She takes care of, side by side, she's in a partnership for this as they grow the spread of God's name in the world. But when Yitzchak is born, things change. She's still participating in all that Avram wants to do. But now she has a primary focus, a primary mission, which is the founding of the Jewish people. And for that, she's very protective. And when there's a challenge with Ishmael, thinking he should be the forerunner of everything, and he should be claiming the fatherhood of nations and the inheritance of Abraham. So she goes to battle on that, and Ishmael and Hagar are sent away because they don't have that capacity that Yitzchak has, and therefore she is hyper-focused on where this Yerusha, this inheritance is going. Not only the physical inheritance, but more importantly, the spiritual inheritance. And Yitzchak is all in for this. And we'll see that when it comes to even the sacrifice of Yitzchak, when we go to the Akedah, and Avram is going to sacrifice Yitzchak, you see clearly from the text of the Chumash that when he finds out that he is the korban, he's still in. No problem. He's absolutely in. And so Sarah is focused on the establishment of the Jewish people. That's her primary goal. That's her focus. So as we look towards the end of the parsha, we talk about this as being Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah. So how is this Sarah's life? Her focus is on creating a dir b'tachtonim, a dwelling place for God down in the physical world, not amongst all the nations, but specifically amongst the Jewish people. And so you see that in her lifetime, she is the mother to Yitzchak, she's guardian of Yitzchak, and she passes on that challenge to establish the Jewish people. And in her passing, the very first plot of land is unequivocally purchased in public and recorded for everyone to see, the beginning of what becomes the Jewish homeland, the Jewish land. So the land of Israel and the people of Israel are established in this week's Parsha, and that is the focus of Sarah. And so, in a very real sense, Chayei Sarah, this is the life of Sarah. So what lessons in leadership might we take away from this? Avram's mission was very focused in a large context, that being a light unto the nations, right? And Sarah was very focused on creating that one Jewish nation which would become forever the light unto the nations. Their missions were a little bit different, and their focus had to be different, and they focused it very clearly. And so when we look at the Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah, yes, the fulfillment of all that she focused on is right here within the Parsha. And so with that, I ask, what is your mission? What is your Jewish mission? And what is your purpose? And I hope these questions will be helpful for you. Take care.